Welcome in, everybody. We're just going to go live. Sometimes you got to just click the button. You never have enough information prepped, and you're never ready to go live. Rachel Smith is asking, can you please share your email? Well, Rachel, you should know where to find it. I'm a little bit leery of sharing my email with somebody who can't find it when it's readily available. But it's sleuthintuition@gmail.com. I mean, it doesn't hurt to go look. What's up, CJ? CJK? Phil Bond? All right, guys, we're diving back into the mysterious case out of Delphi. Abby and Libby, 13 and a 14-year-old murdered in a small town. We still don't know why, how, or who. But Sleuth, they convicted Richard Allen. Okay. I don't remember them explaining exactly what happened during the trial. What's going on, Miranda? Rescue, good to see you. Frank Meister. Good morning, everybody. Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're having a great day so far. Sinuses, congestion. Could be changing of the seasons. Usually affects me. Starts with my allergies, and then from my allergies goes to congestion, and then potential sinus infections and things like that. But I think the root cause is the changing of the seasons. The Red Queen, working and lurking. Glad to catch alive. Okay, so we've spent enough time to ensure that we're not reacting to the Reese Davis information emotionally, right? We're not jumping on a bandwagon. I was a little disappointed in you guys for not going and proving to yourselves, at least, that he did in fact write those letters about Ron Logan starting in 2017. A couple of you did. A couple of you emailed me. One of you emailed me, and I said, "Okay, we'll prove it." You still struggled to prove that you knew that it was real, but you did struggle to prove it. But some of you just didn't care. You didn't care if it was real. You just assumed Baldwin was lying. You listened to me, like, oh, Sleuth says he's just making it up. And nobody produced it. It was right there. It was readily available. So I do want to give a big shout out to Cryptex. He recently posted the information for everybody to see. Just the first one to do it. So I think now that everybody's let the dust settle, the fodder is starting to clear. We're not reacting emotional, right? Free Reese Davis. Free Reese Davis. You know, he's such a good guy. He's saying everything that that I want, that I've been wanting to say, or that nobody would listen to me about, you know. I told you Richard Allen didn't work alone. So now we need to free Reese Davis. All that has kind of cleared out. Now we can take a serious look at this. An objective look. So before we get into that, there's going to be a few things that I wanted to clear up. I did tune into a few live streams, one last night and one the other day. There's just a lot of misinformation. Like, you don't need to lie on your live stream to convince people that others were involved. You don't need to lie. Like, the evidence is already there, that there's already a potential for it. So we're going to clear up some of that. For those of you who really care, some of you are just here to chit chat, but some of you are really digging into the case and you really want answers. Those are the people that I want to talk to today. Everybody else, you can kind of sit back and eat your popcorn. That's what you do anyway. And that's all good. That's all good and that's all fair. But today's live stream is for those of you who are out there who really dig, who really need to see the information in front of you to verify it and then piece it together. You're not reacting on emotions. You're not acting on confirmation bias, trying to confirm, you know, your theories, allowing your ego to lead the way. We're going to put all that aside today. What's up, Hathers? Ooh, I like that image. It's kind of spooky. Beth Gonzalez, where you been, Beth? One of my favorite mods. It's been missing in action. Hope everything's okay with you, Beth. All right, who did we miss here? Oh, Lynn. Lynn's in the building. Yeah, Lynn, and I wanted everybody to be cautious of Reese Davis. He's going to sound like what he wants you to hear. He's going to manipulate you. Even if he's telling the truth. He's going to find a way to manipulate you to hear him. Or he's just going to tell a bold-faced lie. And everything that he's kind of conveying to us is all secondhand information anyway. You know, he didn't witness anything. We don't have a video of Ron Logan or Kagan Klein confessing. So it doesn't really matter if he's telling the truth or not, right? I mean, it does matter, but he might be telling the truth, and Ron Logan and Kagan Klein could be lying. But that's beside the point. Today, we're going to take a serious look at it, the connection between Kagan Klein, Ron Logan, and Richard Allen, and also Kagan Klein's father, TK, who is mentioned. Going to take a very, very careful look at it. I think the dust is cleared. You know, we've established that we are not responding because of our emotional attachment to this or because somebody's agreeing with our theory. You think we didn't want to jump all over the Odinism? You know how many times, how many live streams I've had, discussions I've had about a ritualistic, my ritualistic theory? My instincts were, I told you so, but that's just not how I operate. We're going to let the dust settle. We're going to let the emotions clear. And we're going to be objective, and we're going to make sure we know the facts. Rachel sent you a message a few days ago. I just wanted to confirm his correct email. Sorry about that. No worries. Yeah, I do remember thinking, I think you already sent me an email. So I was a little bit confused. If you don't like on YouTube, is it even true crime? Yeah, it's true. Crime. That's true. Crime. Yep. I mean, just bold-faced lies. And we're going to talk about that first. Just going to give everybody opportunity to kind of get settled in here. She Warrior, good to see you. Hope you're having a great day. Jer, what up? How you doing? Typical gaslighting. Indeed. Okay. So some of the things that I would like to clear up. I've been hearing a lot. People are trying to push this narrative that more were involved. Richard Allen couldn't have done this. Do I think he couldn't have done this alone? He could have done this alone. Is it likely? No. In my opinion, no. I don't believe that he did this alone. Could he have? Yes. Thank you, Hathers. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot about the water being up to the up chest high. That's just a bold-faced lie. And I guess I'll just have to prove it again for everybody who doesn't do their own homework and just blindly believes YouTubers who definitely have an agenda, who are reacting emotionally. Or just for the pure, just so that they can manipulate you guys. Some people get off on that shit. Don't ask me why, but they do. Okay, so this is at about 12 p.m. This is exactly where the girls crossed over. You can see the private drive up here. You can see the sandbar here. And the clothing, Libby's clothing was found somewhere over here. So as you can see, it's barely over their ankles, maybe to their knees in this area right here. Now, when you get to this area, it's about 2 to 3 feet deep. So this is going to be the deepest part. This may come up to the girl's waist, but it's just a very small section. So if these guys were to take about 5 steps forward, it would be much deeper here momentarily, and then that's it. No, there's some places, like if you were to walk just, I don't know, 30 yards downstream or down, it would be downstream. It's very deep. So down here in this area, the further you get downstream towards the bridge, the deeper it's going to get. So if you're watching anybody and they're telling you that the girls didn't cross here, nobody crossed here because it's so deep, man, I didn't know that these guys could walk on top of water. I think that would be the story that we're talking about, that these guys can actually walk on water. I mean, look at that. He must have some special shoes. I mean, what the hell? So we have water that comes up to your chest, but this guy's just kind of floating on top of it. The mystery deepens. What's up, Leslie? Good to see you. Lynn, the new motion is troubling. What's troubling about it? Hey, Scott. Good to see you. So we have a bunch of apparently magicians or witches or whatever you want to call it. People with magic shoes are searching the water, and they're literally able to walk on top of the water. So even though the water is up to their chest, it really only covers their feet with these special shoes. Interesting. So there's a lie that's been debunked. So there's no reason to lie to convince your audience that other people were involved. The facts and the evidence it already points to that. You don't need to lie about the water being rushing and white water rapids, and there's a reason that the killer chose this area, or why the girls panicked and decided to cross there. But I do believe the killer intended to push them across here. I think this crime was planned out, and they had every intention of crossing the creek. It makes sense. If you're planning something out, everybody believes the girls crossed the bridge, right? So they're going to be looking over there. But then you double back and completely do the opposite, cross the creek and bring your victims across the creek along with you. All of you are still saying, oh, well, why would they cross the creek? There's no way. Well, that's what the searchers were thinking. The reason criminals do what they do is because they're playing chess. They're not playing checkers. They've actually sat down and thought about cause and effect. If I do this, how will they respond? So now that you know who the liars are out there, go ahead and take a screenshot of this. Next time somebody tells you that the water's rushing and there's white water rapids and you got people flying in from California because they want to surf, there's a great point break here in Delphi. That's bullshit. These guys aren't walking on water. It's extremely shallow right here. That is the reason that they crossed the creek, because it was very easy to do that. But the water was cold. Well, last I remember, kidnapping has a huge penalty, right? We're talking about years upon years in prison. Yet this person went forward and did that. But he's not going to cross the creek because he's going to get his feet wet. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see if anybody came in that I missed. I wonder, rescue. I mean, it depends. Are we dealing with a group of multiple killers here? If you go and search for cases of multiple assailants attacking multiple girls, it happens all the time. It's like a gang rape. The only difference here, I think it was just a pre-planned gang assault or a group attack. So, Fishy, should they reduce kidnapping charges? What's the incentive to let somebody go? Just wondering. Don't come for me. No, that makes sense. I mean, the majority of murders, the reason they happen is not because the killer intended to kill them. He's ashamed of what he's done and he doesn't want to get caught, he or she, and that's why they commit the murder. Most of them are sexual deviants, predators. They can't control themselves. And I'll show you a couple stories today that I came across that I think you'll find interesting. So once they commit the act of sexual assault, they say, well, I don't give a shit about you and I don't want to go to prison, so therefore I'm going to commit this murder. So they do have an incentive to commit murder after they've, done a kidnapping or something like that, for sure. Lynn says the defense is apparently saying it's impossible of the state timeline, basically being the jury when they are not. Well, it all boils down to the camera, right? The Brad Weber 240 timestamp. I mean, that doesn't change anything. They would have to prove that first. Okay, are we all clear on the depth of the water? I just want to make sure we're clear on this before I move on. Because apparently a lot of you have struggled with this. That's not the Nazarene. That's not Christ. That's not some kind of alien with super technology. That's not some new CIA gadget. This isn't a witch. It's not a magician. It's just not deep. The water's just not deep, guys. It's not deep at all. There's a private drive. This is most likely the area where the girls were brought to initially. Water's not deep whatsoever. You can see the sandbar here. And the girls' clothing were here. And I think Abby's jeans were somewhat down here. You guys have anything to add on that? Can we all agree that the water was not deep? I mean, then again, these guys could be on stilts. You don't need any technology for that. No advanced technology. We'll chop it up. They're on stilts. Right? The water is extremely deep. They're wearing stilts. Mustang says, I've been clear on the water level from the beginning, but thanks, Sleuth. It has been an issue with others. Yeah, that's true. Are there prints? Witnesses stated there were prints walking towards the water in this direction. I think that was testified to in court and reported early on. Mary C., I remember the bottom of the creek is like quicksand. You don't hit a rock, your foot sinks quick. You have to move fast. Okay. Now, the second item up before we actually get into today's topic, which is the connection between Ron Logan, Richard Allen, Kagan Klein, and his father, TK. I'm also hearing that the girls were completely clean when they got to the other side of the creek. A lot of you haven't seen the crime scene photos. I have. And the clothing that Abby has on is covered in mud. There's mud all over her clothing. And then people say, well, why isn't Libby covered in mud? Well, because her muddy clothes were taken off and put on either by the killer or by Abby. And she's covered in mud. There's mud all down the side. There's mud on her knees. There's mud on her elbows. She's completely covered in mud. So why would you go around stating that the girls were completely clean when that's just 100% false? Why would you do that? Why would you lie about the water being so high and that the girls were not muddy? Is it because you're a liar? I believe so. So for those of you who have not seen the crime scene photos, the girls, the clothing is covered in mud. Libby's not covered in mud. She's covered in blood. She's got blood all over her hands, all over her neck, and all over her body. And another thing that's talked about is no defensive wounds. Well, we heard during the trial that one of the girls could have been tied up. She could have been tied up, which would have left her incapacitated, right? She couldn't do anything, can't move. And I don't know about you, but blood, after getting a lethal gash across your artery in your neck, first thing you're going to do is go like this. Libby's hands were completely covered in blood. To me, I think that qualifies as a defensive wound. Yeah, she wasn't going like this. But that's not going to be your first response, especially if somebody's behind you. You don't know if somebody's behind you and cutting like this or has you pinned down on the ground face down and cutting, standing over you and making the cutting motions from above. You're not going to have defensive wounds. And that's a good question. It's a good question, Fishy. I know if you walk in really deep mud, it's going to be hard to tell because the way your foot goes into the mud and then suction cups its way out. But that is a good question. We know they went to the Packers plant looking and they seized boots and they didn't look very small. So, yeah, that's a good question. And also, I don't know why people struggle with the idea of the girls crossing the creek. Like, why do you have to lie about the water level and things like that to try to make it fit? And then also the photograph, right? This is where Libby would have been standing while filming. Of course, none of these leaves were on the trees or anything like that, so you could see all the way back here. But do you see how it kind of comes down quite a bit? It looks like it comes down about 3 feet. So not only is she short, she's down a couple feet and filming upward. So if the person on the bridge was Ron Logan, he would look like he's 8 feet tall. He would literally look like a basketball player. It would make him appear very, very tall, much taller than he is. Which is another reason why I think people struggled with Richard Allen, because they can't wrap their mind around the angles of it all. They should have released the actual video so people could understand a little bit better what was going on. So if Ron Logan would have looked 8 feet tall, that means that Richard Allen would have looked 6 feet tall, right? Mary C says, I feel like a box cutter would be hard to get defensive wounds versus. I don't think so. All you'd have to do is put your hand up like that. And then, but, well, I get what you're saying, Mary, because you wouldn't be swiping, like a knife. You'd be swiping, you'd be stabbing, you'd be kind of, with the box cutter, you're kind of pinpointing where you're going and you're just attacking that area. So I get what you're saying. I agree with that. With a knife, you can kind of swing it around, and then no matter what you hit, you're going to cut something, causing a defensive wound. But yes, so I do agree with you. With the box cutter, you're going to kind of pin down your victim, and you're going to pinpoint the area where you're planning to cut. Okay, I got you. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So yeah, if he was swinging it, it would be very easy. Box cutters are just basically a handle for a razor blade. But it wouldn't make sense for him to just be swiping it at him. To me, I believe he pinned down the girls, or at least Libby. I think he was standing over her. Yeah, young victims at that. You know, young victims. And if you're expecting a gun, like you're expecting to be shot, right? Maybe the person tells you to get down on your knees, close your eyes, turn around. But during the trial, they said that Abby could very well have been tied up. There were some signs of it. Yep, or somebody holding her. Two victims with two very different wounds, even appearing to be caused by a different blade. So there's plenty pointing at other people being involved. You don't need to make up lies about surfing the Point Break at Deer Creek, or people walking on water, or that the girls weren't covered in mud. And a lot of these people are counting on you not ever seeing those photos, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's what they're counting on. But for those of us who have seen the crime scene photos, the clothing that Abby is wearing is covered in mud, especially the jeans. There is mud all over her clothing. It's hard, Anna, because people they just lie. You know what I mean? People lie. They don't want to come to the Sleuth Intuition channel because it's not fairy tale land. It's boring over here. The truth sometimes is just boring. Sometimes it's stranger than fiction, and sometimes it's just flat out boring. Hey, what's up, Don? Delulu? Patty? Yep, the voice matches. But then again, the mind is a tricky muscle. It's a tricky organ. Aaron C says, a lot of maybes here. Seems the prosecution didn't really prove their case. All they needed to prove was that Richard Allen was the bridge guy. I think that they did prove that. The rest of it, nobody knows. Like about the van, about the act of murder itself, nobody knows what happened. The only people that know are the people that committed the crime. Lynn says, have they said what the weapon really was at trial? Well, they believe it's a box cutter. It fits. Let's see. So this is a very crude representation of what I was sent. Okay, so the wounds were only about an inch deep, which is more than enough to hit the artery in your neck, which could be the very reason why they targeted the neck, was because they had the box cutter. So doesn't that make sense? If you had a long blade, it wouldn't matter where you attacked your victims. You can just go right through the chest plate. You can stab in the stomach. You can go ape shit about it, right? You know, people get stabbed to death all the time. But if you have a box cutter and not a blade, I think you would focus on the neck. So the wounds are only an inch deep, and next to the actual open wound is this weird bruising along the edges, as if the butt of the weapon, like this area right here, was being pressed into the skin. On one of the victims, the wound was serrated like this, and the other one wasn't, but still only an inch deep with these bruisings on either side, which told them that the blade was only an inch deep and it fits with the box cutter. You got an example, Anna? What's up, Big JD? You are lying. She is not covered in mud at all. What are you even talking about? Yes, she is. And I'm not going to show the photos. She's got mud all over her pants, all over her elbows. It's everywhere. So Big J, you're lying. How about that? Hey, caricature. Hey, Leslie. My daughter was in the grocery store Sunday night and she noticed a guy following her around. So she got on her phone talking to her friend about the guy. Next thing she knew, two guys. That's how kidnappings work, right? They'll have a car parked way up there in front of you, knowing that that's the direction that you're walking. You'll have somebody inside the car who will open the door. And when you kind of turn to look at the open door, a guy hidden in the bushes or behind a corner or in the shadows will come running out and push you into the car. They were the ones who released the photos. I thought, sorry, Sleuth, why do you keep saying don't kick you? I don't even know what you're saying here. They were the ones who really, who's they? Nobody's going to kick you, Fishy. You keep acting like I'm attacking people or something. I don't know if I like that. Let's just stop with all that. Nobody's coming at you. You're making it seem as if nobody's allowed to say what they want to say. Absolutely, Leslie. Strange Exchange says Richard Allen was definitely bridge guy. I believe that. She had no mud at all on her. None. What are you trying to get by saying that? Well, you're fucking lying or you haven't seen the photos for yourself. And I'm not going to show them. Not even going to zoom in on the mud. But for you to say that that's not true, you're fucking lying. Well, that might be the story that I sell to Hollywood, right? I don't know. The photos that I have aren't very defined, but you can clearly see the mud all over the jeans. To say that the girls were clean is fucking stupid. That's your opinion, Big J. You obviously don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you obviously have a narrative. See, over here, so obviously taking part in some kind of tribalism and you're sticking up for your little cult leader, whoever that is. Her pants are covered in mud. They're completely muddy. I didn't say that she was covered in mud. I said that her clothes are muddy. She's extremely muddy. There's mud all over her pants, all over her knees, all over her elbows. Aaron says we have to respect the jury. I don't agree with that. You know, we're dealing with people. It's their job to manipulate a jury. Um, and they don't have very long to absorb any of this information. Hey, agree to disagree, Big J. Agree to disagree. Obviously, the only time you ever show your face around here is to run your mouth. So, here, I guess I can show part of one photo. I guess that won't hurt. Okay, this is a pant leg here. This is Abby's pant leg completely covered in mud. So you may have manipulated me to show that, but now that's the proof. So let's see if she shuts up or not. I doubt it. Okay, good. Richard says the possibility of others being involved makes for great drama, but it does not fit. No way does Alan call the tip line if others were involved. They would veto that idea and kill him if he tried it. That's not true, Richard. Like, you don't know the dynamic between this group. And I don't think Richard Allen wanted to come forward. The way that it was revealed to us during trial was that he was sitting with his wife and she said, "Hey, you need to call the tip line. You were there that day." If he says no, remember, we're dealing with somebody who's playing chess, right? Who may have pre-planned this double murder and almost got away with it. He knows right then and there, if he says, "No, I'm not going to the cops," she's going to begin to suspect him. I mean, I've never seen a closer match to the bridge guy than looking at Richard Allen. And I have never heard a voice closer than to what I hear on that video than Richard Allen. Does that make it him? No. I remember that, Anna. I remember reading about that. I remember hearing about that. Absolutely. What's up, Charlotte? I'm not. He's lying, and you guys all know it. I just showed it. Here, let's go down and see if she said anything. She probably left once I put it on the screen. Well, where are you at? Where'd you go? Just as I suspected. See, this is the problem. You have people lying to certain people, and then they go around pushing that narrative because they trust you. So I just proved that Big JD 420 is a bold-faced liar right here on screen in real time. And she's gone. Very interesting. Just like that. So we've debunked the fact that the water was deep. It was not. We've debunked the fact that there were no defensive wounds. Why would there be, right? And there kind of were when it comes to Libby. And we've debunked the fact that the girls were clean. So let's see who's going to try to lie again today. Who wants to step up to the plate next? Because I guarantee you 420 is not going to. I didn't block her. Oh, to be fair, yeah, unblock her. Yeah, let's unblock her. I want to hear what she has to say for herself after going all in on some bullshit and then was proven wrong instantly. I mean, how does somebody respond to that? Henry Grime, which days of trial did you attend? I didn't attend anything. But I've read everything verbatim, live stream to my audience about what took place during that trial. I mean, we know what happened. We know we have all the quotes. It's not some kind of weird mystery, Henry. Gotcha. I didn't know you were at trial. So you're saying that the rest of the world is completely in the dark because they weren't sitting in the audience during trial. That's fucking stupid. It's always somebody that I've never seen, right? And they just pop in. Could it be an alt account? Most likely, yes. Yeah, 420. It wasn't me that blocked you. Henry Graham, I was there. There are no transcripts from trial. Yes, there are. You don't think people took notes? So you read the transcripts of other YouTube lives to your follower? Yes. Well, it wasn't other YouTube lives. It was reporters that were reporting on what they seen. Obviously, you're not familiar with my channel, or you would have seen that. That's neither here nor there. You're acting as if Henry's acting as if you can only know anything about the trial unless you were there. You're so special, Henry. Henry. What's up, Aaron? Exactly, CJK. I'm not even going to waste my time. He's obviously a troll using an alt account. Everybody gets mad when you debunk their lies. You know, the only time the trolls come out is when you debunk everything. Bye, Henry. I don't do well with passive aggressive behavior. But 420, I didn't boot you. So Charlotte is asking, will Rick get a retrial? I don't know. At this point, I feel like he does deserve one. He needs another opportunity to tell what happened. Let's see if I can do it on my end. Don't worry, Don. If we can't bring her back, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. But I do want her to. I didn't want to take her voice away, and I wanted to hear her response after I proved her wrong. So, really, it's only for my satisfaction. Let me go to my YouTube settings. Oh, here we go. Doesn't look like it's in chronological order. Let me see if she's at the bottom. I have so many people blocked. It's crazy. Nope, I don't think I can unblock her. Oh, well. It is what it is. No, yeah, I know exactly why. That was my initial response was let's just get her out of here. She's obviously triggered and upset that she's being debunked. Some people get that way. They don't know how to have a grown-up conversation. Whenever you challenge their beliefs, something that they've sunk their feet or their teeth into, it's really hard for them to accept that. Richard Allen doesn't deserve a new trial. Hopefully not. I just want him to have another opportunity to tell the truth. And I feel like Baldwin and Rosie, I feel like they had their own agenda and they were using him, which made it extremely easy for the prosecution. Either that or they didn't want to go in any specific direction. Like, notice how they didn't touch Kagan Klein or Ron Logan until after everything was said and done. Makes you wonder as if they didn't want to do the prosecution's job for them, or the job of the investigative team. They didn't want to do their job for them. And I think going after Ron Logan and Keegan Klein, if what Reese Davis is saying is true, may have uncovered the entire plot. Paul Barnhill, one face everyone has overlooked is the fact that Richard Allen drove his wife's car on the day of the murders, which tells me it wasn't a planned event. Why would he be driving his wife's car? She's at work. He's in Peru and she's at work. Did she drive his car? Paul, I don't think you have your facts straight there. Yeah, no worries, Don. She could have handled that better. She was definitely triggered. People get triggered when they're debunked. It happens often. You know, don't disagree with my favorite YouTuber. Don't debunk my favorite YouTuber. He's spent the last 2 months trying to solidify this theory, and you just come in first 5 minutes of a live stream and debunk it all. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Candace, good to see you. Normally we don't. I only get trolled when the debunking starts. You know, it really irritates people. You know, like how dare I go out there and explain what's really going on while they've been able to gaslight a whole group of people, and then it's just undone in the first 5 minutes of a live stream. It's got to be difficult, especially for people like 420, who was obviously lying because I showed you guys just a quick close up on Abby's pant leg, which was obviously covered in mud. Right? Covered in mud. So who's lying, 420? Obviously it's you because I just proved it. Sleuth, you're lying. You're obviously lying. The girls were completely clean. How about those apples? What's up, bootleg? Delulu says he's not getting a new trial. But there is part of me that wishes that he did get a new trial, but he's not. He's not going to get his appeal. We're never going to know what really happened unless we find out on our own, because we know he's not going to say anything. There's no reason for him to say anything. He doesn't want to lose his wife. And if he turns these other guys in, he's still just as responsible. There's no motivation for Richard Allen to snitch on anybody. Hey, Jill. Yep, he can, but he won't. We know he won't. He's going to get settled right in, and he's going to be content with just getting phone calls from his wife, getting letters from certain friends, his groupies. He's happy with that. If he confesses and tells the world exactly what happened, that all goes away. That all falls apart. I think it's a good guess. The defense attorneys believe they had a fairly easy win and they didn't prepare too good. Then the confessions happened and they were unprepared. I don't know. I just don't know. I think there's also a possibility that it's hard to defend a guilty person. And how do you make a bad thing good? How do you spin it to where you can benefit from it? None of your business. Literally confessed to being bridge guy a few days after the crime. Yeah, he confessed to it. He just left out if there was others involved, and he probably didn't tell the full truth. They never do. And we're going to get into that. We're almost done with the first hour. Second hour, we're going to, I think we'll start with breaking Ron Logan's alibi. Then we're also going to look at Kagan Klein. And we all know why he could be guilty. And then we're going to kind of tie that in with Richard Allen and his connection with Mexico and Peru. And then hopefully it'll come full circle with Reese Davis. Now that we can look at it objectively and we're not trying to free Reese Davis, we're trying to process the information. Absolutely, Mary. The truth is like acid. You know, it just burns them. What do you mean the water wasn't deep? What do you mean they were covered in mud? So you mean they did cross the creek? Yes, they did. Delulu says Osbrook makes a living exploiting loopholes and getting dangerous people off. In essence, making the world a shittier place. Not anything to be proud of. You know, but it's necessary. I think, like I said before, defense attorneys, they would rather a guilty man go free than an innocent man go to prison. And I think they get lost somewhere in that. Absolutely, Lynn. That's my problem with it. I feel like they didn't defend their client. They wasted all their time trying to buddy up to these weird YouTubers, hoping that they could taint a jury, maybe even for the appeal. Thanks, Don. But they wasted their time. They didn't even bring up their own client's alibi during trial. Nobody talks about that. I think Becky Patty brought it up one time. She's like, what was his alibi? It's like, that's what I've been saying. The hell is his alibi? He doesn't have an alibi because he participated in it. When it comes to Richard Allen, my only question is, why won't he tell us who else helped him, who else was involved, and what was motivating him? Thank you, Candace. Yeah, some people can't handle it. Because if the water is very shallow and the girls were covered in mud, it's obvious that they crossed the creek. Question is, was it their choice? Was it the killer's choice? And if it was the killer's choice, was that part of the plan? What up? What up? He got baited into essentially confessing to being the bridge guy. That's why he said if that video came from the girl's phone, then it's not me. Yeah, which is an odd answer. That's an odd way to answer that question. It should have just been no. And says that troll person will just say the photo quality is so bad that clean pant legs look muddy. Yeah, if that wasn't clear as day, nothing else will be. The girls are obviously covered in mud. And I wouldn't have even seen those crime scene photos if they weren't posted on YouTube and Twitter or X. But it is what it is. Can't unsee it. Jody Lynn, what's up? Where you been hiding? Yeah, he has no alibi. The thing with Richard Allen is he just doesn't want to tell on everybody. He probably feels really stupid that he left that unspent bullet at the crime scene. I think that the rest of the group took precautions and he fucked up. It's like you got yourself caught, buddy. You know, we all had alibis. We had somebody using our cell phones. We knew what we were doing. You know, we planned this out. You were the one who dropped the ball. So you got caught. We told you not to do this. We told you not to do that. Yet you went and did it anyway. Got yourself caught. That doesn't mean that you got to come snitch on all of us, right? And when I say us, I'm, playing devil's advocate. Potentially that could be Ron Logan. It could be Kagan Klein, TK, whatever. Thank you, Boston. Scotland says they weren't allowed to defend him properly. Well, the thing is, when you say they're not allowed to defend him properly, are you referring to the Odinism stuff? Because there's rules in court. You can't just waste the court's time. You can't waste the jury's time and sending them off on a wolf ticket. It doesn't work that way. So I hope you're not referring to that. Because right then is just another example of how they dropped the ball. Knowing the rules and the rules of that courtroom, knowing that they need a nexus, knowing that they don't have one, and yet they're pressing it, you can tell it was a campaign specifically targeting social media. And it just didn't have the effect that they were hoping for. Maybe the effect was with the appeal court. Maybe they knew they had a loser. But if they can infect the minds of the public with this weird Odinism virus, that might be their only hope. Yep, Lynn, you're right. And that's kind of what I was saying. They defended him in the public, not in court. So it made Goal look bad, right? Oh, this is Goal shit. Her and Nick are buddies. It's like, no, all you had to do was establish a nexus, and we would be talking about Odinism in that trial. Absolutely. Yeah, remember, the way I remember it being explained was that Richard Allen was sitting with his wife and they were watching the news. And she said, "You need to tip that in. You need to call in because you were there that day around that time." If he says no, her ears are going to perk up. Like, what do you mean no? Like, what do you have? What do you got to hide? The wolf ticket? Go look it up. No, I think the defense got to add nothing. Well, you can't just add anything that you want. Remember, you only have a certain amount of time to present your case. If the entire time was them talking about Odinism and there's no nexus to it, that doesn't benefit anybody. That doesn't benefit Richard Allen. It doesn't benefit the jury. It doesn't benefit the court or the prosecution. It's almost like you have two prosecutors in the courtroom, right? You have one who's bringing in the accused who, through probable cause, is confined, right? And he's facing trial. And then you have a whole group of Odinism being presented by a fake prosecutor who's like, no, this is the real suspects over here. And we're going to just run our own prosecution on this side of the courtroom while you run your prosecution, and we'll see which one's best. That's not how it works. The prosecutor has a case against the defense's client, and they need to address that case. They need to address the evidence that's against their client. And yes, by creating doubt and having an alternative suspect is great if you have a nexus. But they did not, unfortunately. Richard Dobson says, I respectfully disagree. In his confessions, he said he acted alone. Well, yeah. Why would he say otherwise? He also said, didn't he ask if anybody else was getting arrested or something? I believe him. There's nobody to tell on. I don't believe in the conspiracy of multiple people or murdered 2 young teenagers. I don't know how that's a conspiracy. I think there's plenty of information that points at multiple suspects. Not to mention, we don't know what happened. We know that the girls went down the hill. We know that at some point they were disrobed and then they were killed. So unless you know something that I don't, I wouldn't necessarily call it a conspiracy. I think a conspiracy is it has to be like more than 3 people. So technically that wouldn't be a conspiracy. There's no rules to journalism, Anna. If you have some news and you're able to put the story together, you're a journalist. You don't have to spell anything right. Now, if you want people to respect you and listen to you, yeah, you might want to. That's a good place to start. I don't think that the Richard Allen people think that. The defense was inept, in my opinion. I think so as well. So why do you think he even told his wife or anybody else he was there in the first place? I think they just knew. I think they just knew he was there. Now, remember, it's kind of like Chad Daybell. After he killed JJ and Tylee, he called his wife after they were murdered and buried in his pet cemetery. He called his wife and said, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know that I killed a raccoon. I got him. I used my rifle, took one shot, and then I buried him in the pet cemetery." So why would he go out of his way to tell her that? Because these criminals, they're trying to come up with ways to cover all of their bases. He's probably thinking, okay, somebody may have heard the gunshot. There's 2 missing children. I don't need people coming around saying, well, I heard a gunshot on this day. And then also the ground is going to be disturbed as if something was recently buried. So he needs to explain certain things away, or he's attempting to. That's the same reason why killers come back to the crime scene. They're going over it in their head, thinking about mistakes that they've made. And then also they want to get involved in the investigation to kind of steer the investigation in another direction while simultaneously gleaning information that might help them. I call those countermeasures. So you might think it's weird for him to call it in, but he probably has his own reasons for doing so. In his mind, he's probably thinking that he's being strategic. And he was, right? It worked. Did it not work? It was extremely strategic. Every move that he made got him 6 years of freedom. Don says the defense made a big mistake by naming innocent people with alibis and no connection to the crime scene that day. Yeah, and it makes you wonder, why didn't they go after Kagan Klein? Why didn't they go after Ron Logan? Because according to Reese Davis, that would have all led right back to Richard Allen. What's up, Dark Side? Yeah, and the witnesses. That's a good answer as well. He was seen by 3 people on the way into the trail. And then while he was on the bridge, he was seen by a woman. And then fleeing the scene, he was seen. So there's 4 witnesses. Well, there's 5 witnesses. Technically 6. But one, I think, was just so young that she wasn't really sure what she saw. And remember, Richard Allen said it looked like they were babysitting. And that's exactly what those girls were doing. It was 3 girls, and one of them had a very young sister with them. And it looked like they were babysitting. Very accurate for Richard Allen to say that. But that could be the very reason for him to come forward, right? Do you want law enforcement coming after you, or do you want to appear innocent and you're being proactive and you're coming forward? Anna says the defense attorney apparently didn't go through all the discovery. I think they expected an easy win. I believe it would have been so without the confessions. I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, the timeline is enough, right? The timeline and the bullet. You know, it wasn't just that the tool marks matched, it was the type of bullet matched with the bullet that he had in his little keepsake box. No alibi, witnesses, friends, etc. Yeah, nothing. Nobody was willing to testify for Richard Allen about his whereabouts that day. You had his sister testify that he didn't molest her. Why didn't they ask about what he was doing that morning or how his behavior was? He was with his mother. She didn't testify. She could have easily have said, "Hey, well, nothing was off. Nothing was off with Richard Allen. He seemed fine. He was in a good mood. He just didn't want to go to lunch with us. He said he wanted to go blow off some steam." None of your business says he covered his face enough that nobody could really positively identify him. Well, he did when he walked onto the trail, but when he was on the bridge, no mask. When he was muddy and bloody, no mask. So you're half right. Oh, I didn't see. I didn't even know he was in here. Yep, Betsy Blair and Sarah Carbaugh. CJK says Ricky the killer didn't tell his wife the full truth from that day. No. Remember, he's only going to tell whatever he thinks is strategic, whatever helps his cause. A master manipulator. He slinks into chats under alts and phrases all of talking points as questions. Easy, Alex Trebek. I don't know, Delulu. Absolutely, Mary. Mary says they didn't put Kathy and his mom on the stand for a reason. Absolutely. No, I understand why he would call it in. I understand the motives and strategy. Good point, Sleuth. That's why he thought he would be recognized by those people and got nervous. Yeah, he fucked up. So if he is, let's say he did do this with 2 or 3 other men, he's the one that fucked up. You know, he's the one that got seen. He's the one that decided to do what he did. He's the one that lost the bullet. You know, the least he can do is not snitch on the rest of the group. But I don't think that's his motivation. His motivation, it all boils down to his wife and his dependent personality disorder. Yeah, you would think so, Dark Side. But they weren't going to perjure them. They weren't going to commit perjury. I don't know. Is that a misdemeanor or a felony? I'm not sure what that is. How can you be so obtuse? What did you call me? Obtuse. All right, let's get into this. Okay, let's start with Ron Logan. So Ron Logan was at the dump around 12 noon. Multiple people say that Ron Logan confessed. You guys probably only know of Reese Davis. But what about James Haas? So I first learned about James Haas from Barbara McDonald, who may still have some redemption in her future. If any of this new info pans out, right? Oh, look at this fucking guy. My name is James Haas. I'm missing my left eye. I got hit in the face with a shovel. Okay, let's find out who James Haas is. Okay, Carroll County 911 dispatch received a report from Tracy Haushen August 10th at 10:48 a.m. saying she returned home to find her boyfriend unresponsive. Investigators found the victim, Richard M. Haushen, 62, of Deer Creek, and appeared to be deceased. Tracy Haushen was a former wife and the current live-in girlfriend of the victim. Preliminary suspicion centered on the condition of the home's interior when investigators arrived. Items in the home were found in disarray. An autopsy was scheduled for August 11th. According to the probable cause affidavit filed in Carroll County Court by County Detective Tony Leggett on August 14th, it was determined at the scene the cause of death was most likely due to 2 bullet wounds to the head, which appeared to be from a small caliber firearm. So this was basically a love triangle. James Haas, jealous that his girlfriend was going back to her ex-husband, killed him. Okay, so why are we talking about James Haas? Because James Haas, here, I'll show you. Oh, shit, I think I lost it. Oh, I did lose it. Oh, well. Anyway, what happened was James Haas told Barbara McDonald that when he was locked up with Ron Logan, that Ron Logan would lay on the floor and he would masturbate and he would say the names of Abby and Libby. Yep, Haas with 2 A's. So Reese's not the first person to come forward and say that Ron Logan confessed to taking part in the crimes. Yeah, that's right. None of your business. You kind of have to try to look at things through the killer's eyes, right? What does he think may have happened? Because he doesn't know if they saw him or might be able to identify him. It's kind of what is his paranoia telling him? What's going on in the mind of the killer? You know, those gears, how are they turning? The mouse on the wheel, how fast is he running? Killed his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend after trying to get others to help him or do it for him. Okay, so Ron Logan apparently has confessed to multiple inmates of his involvement in the crime. He started out his day cleaning up his yard, and he was at the dump around 12 noon. Now, 12 noon is an interesting time of date when you consider the stories about Kagan Klein and Richard Allen. So he's leaving the dump around 12 noon. Richard Allen says that he got to the trails at 12 noon. And Keegan Klein says that he was with his grandparents from 12 to 3. So everything with these guys, and remember, that's what we do is we look for patterns. So 12 noon is definitely something they all have in common. Ron Logan has everything cleaned up on his property by 12 noon. Richard Allen is apparently showing up at 12 noon. And Kagan Klein is with his father, establishing his alibi between 12 and 3. So that's something they all have in common. Okay, another fact about Ron Logan is that his phone pinged in Delphi at 2:09. We know that Libby's phone stops moving at 2:32 p.m. Ron Logan has a receipt and a checkout time, and the timestamp is at 5:20 p.m. The witnesses there stated that Ron Logan, nothing seemed off about him. You know, he wasn't muddy and bloody. He didn't look like he was in a fight, and that he spent just about an hour in the store. So if you break down that timeline, that gives Ron Logan an entire hour after the girl's phone stops moving to do something with the bodies, to do something with the crime scene, to go get cleaned up, to get redressed, to get rid of evidence before anybody's even looking for the girls. And then he's off to the fish store to establish his alibi. So, I mean, if you break it down, which I think I did over here. At least I did. Maybe I did it in my head. Oh, no, yeah, I wrote it down. Okay, so 2:35, the girl's phone stops moving. And the prosecution tried to make it seem like that's the time of death. Well, it's definitely, probably when the incident was taking place. So I think they're very close to that. So 2:35, girl's phone stops moving. It would take about 15 minutes for him to leave the crime scene, get dressed quickly, and then flee the scene. So it'd be about 2:50, about that time. Now it's a 30-minute drive. Hopefully I have a map of this. If I'm smart, I do. Hopefully I do somewhere. Okay, here it is. Aquarium World. And I'll share this with you guys. So if you map it out from Delphi to the Aquarium World here in Lafayette, takes about 30 minutes. So Ron Logan would have had to commit the murders, cross the creek. After he committed the murders, leave the girls there, which he may have been comfortable with, leave them there, run back to his home, clean up all the blood off of himself. Who knows what he did. Take him about 15 minutes. And we know he was still in Delphi at 2:09 for sure. It would take him 30 minutes to drive to Aquarium World. That would make it 3:20. So he would show up at Aquarium World at 3:20. And if he was in the store for an hour, it would be his timestamp on his receipt would have been 4:20. But what's funny, it was the exact opposite. Exactly an hour later, which is very strange, I think. So that gives him 1 hour of time that we can't really explain. So Ron Logan definitely could have been the killer. Could have been a hands-on killer. So there really is no breaking Ron Logan's alibi, other than the fact that he doesn't look like the bridge guy. And the only reason most people think that he might or resembles him is because they're not taking into consideration the angle. They're not doing themselves any favors by doing that. Lynn says, Sleuth Intuition, speaking of the gun, the defense thought the police had the same kind of gun used in the murders. I don't think so. Because during the trial, they testified that most are using 9mm. I think they even stated that nobody on the scene of that crime was carrying a .40 caliber firearm. So I don't know why they would make that mistake, Lynn. Melissa, what's up? Ron Logan was on camera at the dump that day also. Yes. And that's what I started with. And that was around 12 noon. And the dump is not very far. It's by the Packers plant. So Ron Logan definitely had opportunity. I just don't know how he could have done that. Remember, he wasn't, if he's checking out at 5:20, when would he have the chance to move and stage the crime scene? So his timestamp for his receipt is 5:20. It's 30-minute drive. So he gets home right around 6. But there's still a whole hour before he even went to the store that is unexplained. So there is no breaking Ron Logan's alibi. He has opportunity. The question is, does he have motive? And could he have cleaned up after 6 at some point? Could he have gone while people were looking for the girls? Could he have gone down to the crime scene? They say that his phone was kind of pinging around that area early in the morning and sometime at night, which makes sense because everybody was searching in that area. He could have been walking with people that were searching, like, hey, if you go this way or you go that way, there's trails over here. So it would make sense that he was back there around that time because we know he was home around, by at least 6:30. Anybody but Richard Allen. And the thing is like everything that's being discussed doesn't eliminate Richard Allen. The question is, did he do it alone? Could he have done it? Yes. Do I think that's likely? Absolutely not. I think he had help. I don't think that he did this alone. Yep, he's much taller. Here, let me pull these back up. Let's see. I have too many of these damn folders open. Maybe I can take like a screenshot of that. Maybe that'll help. There, now I can write on it. So the camera angle is not like a straight on angle to where you're going to have tall Ron Logan appearing 6 feet tall. That's not what's happening. The angle that you have is coming from down here going up. Causing Richard Allen to appear tall. I call it the Tom Cruise effect. A lot of people don't know that Tom Cruise is the same height as Richard Allen. He's like 5'5", 5'6". Now, if you were going to use the same angle, because a lot of people think that the bridge guy looks like he's about 6 feet, which he should. If it's Richard Allen, he should appear to be about 6 feet. That makes sense coming from this angle, right? Now, Ron Logan would have been somewhere over here. And he would have appeared like a giant almost. He would have appeared to be close to, 6'5", 6'8". So you have to remember this is not a direct angle here. It's not, they're not getting a straight on shot. Libby was not standing right here taking the photo. She was standing over here. That's why Abby was saying, don't leave me. Like, is that creepy guy still behind me? Don't leave me up here. She's saying that because she's already off the bridge. It's the first time she's been on there. That's why he's attacking her. That's why he was able to catch up to her. Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate that. Thank you for the super sticker. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit. So in all reality, Richard Allen should look like he's about 6 feet. Anyway, I digress. Pooh says that is not Ron Logan. Okay, so I think the question, for me, the question is not, is Ron Logan the bridge guy? It's, was he involved? Was he involved? No, these are little clips from Bill from Delphi Timeline. This is down the hill. And another question is, why is Ron Logan anywhere over here? He wouldn't be. So that's another question. Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate that. I don't get a whole lot of support these days. It's all good. We'll make do. So once you come down the hill and walk to the edge of the private drive, this is what you see. And the crime scene is like right over here. You got the sandbar right here. You go down the hill, you go down another hill, take a short hike over here. There's really nowhere else to go. Either you can climb up this steep embankment that'll bring you back up to the private drive, or you can cross the shallow water. Okay, now what about the idea of Keegan Klein hooking up Ron Logan and his dad with burner phones? What do you guys feel about that information? I pulled a few interesting articles. Let's see. Rexburg man accused of buying second cell phone to look at child porn after police seize his first one. So this guy is such a degenerate that he gets arrested for having CSAM, and he goes and he learns, right? He learns from it. Like, man, I need a burner phone or they're going to catch me. I can't stop doing what I'm doing. But if I don't get a secondary phone, I'm going to continue to go to jail. "18-year-old was arrested after police say they seized his phone after finding child pornography on it. Days later, he allegedly purchased a second phone to look at more child sexually exploitive material. Kyle Jeffrey Allen was charged with 10 counts of felony possessing or accessing child sexually exploitive material." So these people can't stop. So what do? They just kind of refine how they're accomplishing the goal, right? Their goal is to be a pedophile, to do pedophile things. How do they do it and get away with it? Well, I think early on they learned that they need a burner phone. I think that could have very well have been Kagan Klein's specialty. Here's another outstanding citizen. The hell was his name? Something Willis. Mark Willis, 60 years old. 60 years old. Doesn't he remind you of somebody? Okay, Pennsylvania man was arrested in West Virginia last week for allegedly creating and distributing child porn videos across the U.S. and Canada. Authorities said Tuesday. Mark Willis, 60, of Holmesville, Pennsylvania, was tracked down by the U.S. Marshals. Remember, the U.S. Marshals were on the stage when they busted Richard Allen, not the FBI, in West Virginia, and arrested for manufacturing and disseminating child sexual abuse material, CSAM. Bucks County District Attorney Jennifer Shorn said Willis is accused of victimizing at least 4 children across the continent and sharing CSAM videos online. Investigators want to make the public aware of Wills and encourage more victims not known to law enforcement to come forward. Investigators claim Wills created fake social media accounts pretending to be young boys to lure underage girls into sending him sexually inappropriate videos. Where have we heard that before? 4 victims have been identified, but investigators believe there could be up to 20. Scorn said she said 3 of the victims were out of state and 1 was in Canada. Detectives also found handwritten documents that included details about victims and false identities of young males with names, dates of birth, email addresses, and passwords, according to the DA. So, if these child predators are evolving and they're getting better and they're learning how to hide from law enforcement, don't you think it would be very lucrative for somebody like Keegan Klein to make that very easy for them? Oh, shit. I had another one saved. Let me see if I have it. So I can find this article. Damn. I don't know if I can find it. Well, anyway, this guy turned himself in. He said he was basically a sex addict. He's a pedophile, and that he's been purchasing child porn through the KIK, the same app that Kagan Klein. I think it's a dating or social media app, but KK was using that as well. Well, this guy turned himself in, saying that he spent thousands of dollars on links and on child porn, and he was basically turning himself in. So I just wanted to present that to you as proof that it is a lucrative endeavor if you can find the clientele, right? It's not something that you just go, "Hey, are you into that CSAM, huh? Hey, how's the weather? You got any CSAM?" It'd have to be somebody that you know. You would have to be a verified piece of shit, I think. But that brings us to Kagan Klein now. So we now know that Ron Logan had opportunity. He, he can't be I don't think he's the bridge guy. I don't think it's possible. Did he help facilitate? Did he have access to film of the crime, photos of the crime? Did he take his own video? Did he film it himself? Possibly. None of your business as well. Do you believe that he could get home, clean up, and get to his car by 4:20? Well, we know that he was in Delphi at 2:09, and the girl's phone stopped moving at 2:32. So he would have, even if he left 15 minutes after 2:32, if he left immediately, his timestamp on his receipt would have said 4:20, but it didn't. It said 5:20, which means that there's a whole hour that he's unaccounted for, which could have been him doing a bunch of weird shit at the crime scene or cleaning up. Darkside says right, because I think if Ron is involved, Richard definitely still is too. Absolutely. So Ron Logan being involved doesn't exonerate or exclude Richard Allen. If anything, it just solidifies it. The question is, does it make any sense? Yeah, and from what I'm gathering, that this happens often. People are creating burner phones and selling the phones to people that may not really know how to get their hands on it, using the dark web or using this weird language, things that Kagan Klein obviously refined over time. It's all trial and error. Okay, so we did have a homework assignment that I kind of gave you guys the other day. And the only person who actually produced anything was Cryptex. So now we're going to discuss it in a serious way. Okay, so now we have the timestamp letter from Reese Davis. This is what it says. Mr. Logan has made reference to the killings in Delphi, Indiana. He told me he was the one who had killed the girls, that it got out of hand. He walked with them in the woods to his property, and the girls wanted to turn back. Said something about walking the blank. He grabbed the youngest girl to reassure her it was okay. However, they panicked, and he also panicked. He indicated he ended up cutting the oldest with a box cutter. He went on telling me that he killed both of them because it was took too far. So there he is talking about the box cutter. Well, we know that Ron Logan's most likely not the bridge guy. So how would he know about such an intimate detail? Well, just because he's not the bridge guy doesn't mean he's not on the other side of the creek, with Kagan Klein's father. Kagan Klein confessed, said his father was down there with his friends, came out of the woods bloody and muddy, saying we just had fun. That was fun. How do we know that Ron Logan isn't one of those folks? How else would he know about the box cutter in 2017, guys? So just like Richard Allen is confessing, he leaves out all the details that would implicate anybody else, but is kind of giving us a window into what may have happened, into his role in it. Is this Ron Logan giving us a window into what his role may have been, excluding all other participants? What good would it make for him to snitch on anybody else? They're all equally involved in the crime. Allegedly. Davey says, I thought it was multiple players for a while, but I think now somebody would have coughed up the other names if there were any. That's a huge misconception. A lot of people say, oh, multiple actors means multiple opportunities for somebody to snitch. That hasn't been the case. I challenge you guys to go look up some cases where multiple offenders were involved. None of them snitched on each other. Not until they were all caught and exposed. But nobody talked. Nobody blabbed about the crime outside of the little core group. And nobody ever knew who was involved. It took the investigative team to figure it all out. And we're not even talking about 3 or 4 people involved. In some of these crimes, we're talking about 6, 7 people, like a gang of people, where they commit brutal, sometimes even 2 victims. And nobody talks. They take trophies and everything. It just doesn't make sense. It's so random, You don't really know where to start. Darkside says they both drank, Ron and Richard. Maybe they knew each other from a bar or something. Well, Kagan Klein told Reese Davis that Kagan Klein and Ron Logan knew each other. First, Kagan Klein said that Richard Allen was involved, and then he said, no, I take that back. Richard Allen wasn't involved. Because he's starting to understand, like, when you snitch, you're only supposed to tell your side of it. Because it's not really beneficial to snitch on everybody if you guys are all equally involved. How are you going to benefit from that? Unless you're just trying to get it off your chest. Pooh says, don't you think Richard Allen would have been shouting from the rooftops that Ron Logan is the guy, especially if he was dead? Not if it led back to him. I'm not going to help law enforcement do anything. If there's nothing that would ever motivate you to snitch on somebody if it leads back to you. I mean, what's the motivation? You're basically telling on yourself. If he tells on himself, his wife is going to divorce him, and his little cult following they're not going to support him. People are probably sending Richard Allen money right now for his commissary. People that we see on YouTube. These free Reese Davis types. Like, just because you interview Reese Davis doesn't mean that he needs to be freed or whatever. You can still have a conversation with the guy. You can still take information from him. It doesn't mean that now you're his best friend. Oh my God, he took my interview. You're my best friend. We need to free you. Mustang says there was talk of a box cutter before Richard Allen was arrested. Not that I know of. I know people say things, but they don't like to prove that. Right, Mustang? So if you have proof of that, send it to me. That's kind of a good example of what I was referring to. KK has lied so much, I can't believe anything he says. What has he lied about? I mean, that's a good point. He's lied so much, but what? Let's name some of those lies. Darkseid says the only way would have been for the police to have maybe asked Ron Logan about the box cutter or mentioned it. Let me see when this was dated. All right, so June 21st. So do you think that Ron Logan would have learned about it by then? And he's probably already been locked up. Yeah, there could have been multiple interrogations of Ron Logan, right, that we don't know about. So June of 2017, Reese Davis knows about the box cutter. I find that very interesting. He says he learned it from Ron Logan. Ron Logan has a whole free hour of time to participate in this murder and cover it up. Is he the bridge guy? No. Could he and another man have been waiting on his side of that creek? Yes. Why not? J Ray, what's up? Free Richard Allen. Free Richard Allen. Cindy, what's up? In my opinion, Ron thought this was done by McCain's to get his property, set him up. Yeah, I mean, that's a good theory. They did want his land. It used to belong to them. It used to belong to their parents, the McCains. Could be. Now, remember, James Haas came forward and told Barb McDonald that Ron Logan was masturbating and talking about the girls while he was masturbating. Then we have Reese Davis coming forward saying that Ron Logan said he's the one that killed the girls and he used a box cutter. Well, now it's safe to say that a box cutter was used based on the wounds, right? Now, how would he know that the wounds were only an inch deep and had this strange bruising around the outsides? Only a box cutter or something similar to a box cutter, like a homemade blade or something that was very short, would leave this kind of a cut. The only way this happens is if, for some reason, law enforcement and the investigative team, while interviewing Ron Logan, let it slip that they believe this could be a box cutter. Then you'd have to ask yourself, why is Ron Logan motivated to lie? Well, he's an inmate. Inmates, they have a laundry list of reasons why they lie. Maybe he was trying to impress Reese Davis. Maybe he was afraid of Reese Davis and wanted him to appear that he was dangerous, that he was capable of murder. But the point is that he had intimate knowledge of the crime scene and he had the opportunity to participate. Yeah, early on in the case, Mustang, they were looking for a specific knife, and I think it was a knife with a serrated blade. They went to the hardware stores. They even went to CVS. Isn't that crazy? They went to CVS specifically. And I think the first time I heard about it was somebody that worked at the CVS reported that. It wasn't Richard Allen, unless he was. Oh, wait, maybe he was using an alt account. I'm going to have to go back and check on that. Because I think the first time that was reported to the public, it came from a CVS employee. And they were saying, hey, and the investigators were kind of snooping around the store today looking for a serrated blade or a blade that has a hook on the end, like a hooked blade. So I think they were trying to figure out what would cause a 1-inch deep incision. Maybe a knife with a hook on it, right? Let's see. Maybe we can edit it to where I can hopefully explain. Markup. Let's do that. So they're trying to figure out what it is that would leave such a shallow but deadly gash. So if you have a hooked blade, right? It might leave this type of a wound. But it's not, it wouldn't show these though. But it would leave this shallow 1-inch deep cut. So I think that's why they may have been looking for this kind of a knife with a hook on the end of it. I think the word that was used was gutting, like a gutting knife. Yeah, it's very odd, Dark Side. And that's why we're taking a serious look at it today. Now that all of the weirdness has settled, all of the weirdos are done talking about it, we're going to use factual information and we're going to address it. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, guys, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Okay. So we are on hour 2. We're running out of time. I got to get some food in my belly. I think we'll finish with this. Okay, so you had Richard Allen leaving Peru around 12, right? Kagan Klein says he has an alibi between 12 and 3. That's basically when the murders occurred, right? The amount of time it would take you to drive from Peru, get to Delphi, get organized, go meet up at Ron Logan's, you would have to have been there by 12. And if they're using these weird burner phones, remember Kagan Klein was arrested with handfuls of burner phones. And his father had access to almost all of them. And they asked him, well, why does your dad have access to all of your phones? Well, they said because he's not tech savvy. He doesn't know how to do all of that. He needed to do something for his benefits, for his job. So I set him up a phone and I did it all for him. Right. So we know that Kagan Klein is using burner phones. He was using them in Vegas. He was busted with a handful of them. All of them had CSAM on them. All of them have access to the Dropbox. You have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Why are you creating that? Well, if you know Ron Logan and Richard Allen said he was a sex addict, but there's no proof of that, maybe this is what they're doing. They're using these burner phones. Why a burner phone? Well, I just showed you the articles. If you're a sick pedophile and you can't stop doing what you're doing, eventually you're going to learn, the street code. Like, how do we do this without getting arrested? Well, Keegan Klein is making that very easy for these people potentially, according to Reese Davis, right? So it makes sense to me. You have Richard Allen with no evidence of being a sex addict, claiming that he's a sex addict. Well, how is he participating in sex acts Well, he's probably using a burner phone. Where does he get the burner phone? From an old friend that he used to live next to. Well, the truth is, his wife, Kathy, lived like 2 houses down from Tony Klein when they grew up. And at one point, they even went to the same school. They're about 2 years apart in age. My sources tell me they did know each other at a very young age. So we don't know if they're connected. We don't know if they're meeting privately, secretively for these phones. I don't know if Kagan Klein knows Ron Logan. I don't know if Ron Logan knows Richard Allen. But to say that they don't without knowing, I just don't see the benefit in that. All right, guys, I'll give you 5 more minutes to kind of unwind, unpack everything that we went over today. That's not quite the way I wanted to present the information, but we can always do a follow up on all of this. We know these people are motivated to do, things like burner phones. It's the smart choice. If you're going to be dabbling in CSAM, you definitely want a phone that is not connected to you with access to, let's say, a Dropbox. And somebody like Kagan Klein, it appears we have evidence that he's been doing that. He's got CSAM geo printed and geo with geolocation all over Indiana. So I think it's possible that he was creating these devices and potentially selling them for a lot of money. And unfortunately, I didn't have that article saved, but there was a young man. He said he spent thousands of dollars just in a short period of time on links, on exchanging CSAM, and on obtaining a burner phone. And then you have people who get busted for CSAM, and the first thing they do is they go obtain a burner phone. So if you have somebody like Kagan Klein who has been spending a whole lot of his I think he started in early 2015 from what we can gather that he was catfishing, refining his quote unquote skills, right? It's all trial and error. And then once he has it figured out, people that are interested in that kind of thing, hey, well, I can set you up with this device. It's untraceable. You don't have to access the internet. And if you do, just go to, a public server, public Wi-Fi, maybe the local McDonald's. And then all you have to do is access the Dropbox here. This is how you do it. You click here. This is your Dropbox. And then you click here. I'll have the link ready for you. You pay the money. I'll take the money, and then you can open the link. What's up, V? So I think all of this kind of ties in together quite well. And if any of you sleuths out there are trying to uncover this information, you really need to dig. You can't take YouTubers' words for it. You can't take the prosecutor's word for it. And you can't take the jury that convicted Richard Allen's word for it, that this is all over with, that this is all said and done. We haven't learned anything about the motive, about the players. And we're talking about a jury that didn't know anything about the Delphi case, was only there for 2 months, to absorb the information. And they're dealing with people who it's their duty to manipulate them, really. There really is no such thing as justice if you think about it. Not on either end. You have the defense who's trying to manipulate the jury in one direction, and then you have the prosecution who's trying to manipulate the information to go in another direction. It's like playing basketball. It's like me stepping onto the NBA basketball court and thinking that I can hang with those guys. That's what the jury is in that courtroom. Trying to compete with these professionals. Hey, Presence, what's up? No shades today. So I think it is possible. The fact that Reese Davis knew about the box cutters early on, I mean, it's very telling. And if you disagree with that, you're just a hypocrite because it can't be some huge revelation, right? When it comes to Richard Allen. And then when it comes to Reese Davis, it's nothing. It's a nothing burger. You know, things just don't work that way. But I'm glad that we could debunk a few things, that the water was absolutely shallow and that the girls were completely covered in mud, at least the clothing that Abby was wearing. We don't know anything about Abby's clothing because it was in the creek, and most of Libby's clothing was in the creek that wasn't being worn by Abby. But everything that was being worn by Abby was covered in mud. And we proved that today. So, why did they cross the creek? I don't know why the chicken crossed the road. Ron Logan's dead. Kagan Klein's trying to talk. He's been trying to confess. He's not going to tell the full truth. We know that. Richard Allen isn't going to say shit because he has a dependent personality disorder and he doesn't want to lose his wife. So guess what, guys? It's up to you. It's up to you to break this thing wide open. If it's going to happen, which at this point I think most are content with the arrest of Richard Allen. I myself am not, but that's just me. Kobe. Yeah, shout out to Cryptex. He took the assignment personally. I wish more of you would have. I did get a couple of emails. Shout out to those of you who did present the information to my email. You guys actually care about the facts. You're not just going to take my word for it. Remember, don't go around trusting YouTubers. Gather the information for yourselves and make an educated decision. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for my live stream today. Rest in peace to Abby and Libby. I know they're in a great place now. And I'm going to keep on digging. I know that's not something that the family prefers, prosecution prefers, the defense prefers, and a lot of you out there don't prefer. It's just something that I have to do. So you guys take care. I'll see you again a little bit later tonight. We'll do a quick check-in, and we'll just unwind a little bit. So special thanks to Don Spain and Leslie for sponsoring today's live stream. Remember, guys, we're 100% crowd-funded. So anything you guys can do to help out with the Cash App, the Zelle, the Venmo, purchasing merch at the sleuthintuition.com shop is greatly appreciated. All of you members, you mods, subscribers, all of you. And replay crew, make sure you guys leave a comment and we'll get back to you. Absolutely, Booze. All right, guys, take care of yourselves. I'll see you again a little bit later.